I'm home. Wow, what a trip. I tell you what, it's surreal to be back home in front of my computer around all the things that make my life convenient and to think back and realize what has transpired in the last 6 days, 5 days. Um, where to start? I don't want to make this a long, drawn out video, but I know there's a lot of details that some of you may want to know, and I guess I'll just recap just what has happened. We left Sunday morning on November 3rd, uh, headed to our halfway point in O'Fallon, Missouri, which is where Melinda and Jeff live, which is my brother's sister-in-law. So we made it there, and my brother's invention of using folding tables to put my mattress on to sleep on, it worked. It was about 6 inches too high for Mom, but Keith put me on the bed so she wouldn't have to lift up so high. So that worked out really good. So cold. We got back on the road Monday morning and left out about 9:30. Headed to Rochester, and we got there, if I remember correctly, around 5 or 6, something like that. Got in bed and had early appointments Tuesday morning at the Mayo Clinic. Had to be there at 7:20. So it was really cold that morning, and we had heard it was going to snow the next morning. So we had to get up at, I think Tuesday morning we got up at 4 o'clock. Yeah, I had to get up at 4 o'clock in order to be there at 7:20. The Airbnb house that we rented was only about 10 minutes away from Kirkland, from Mayo. So that was really helpful. So we got there, and there was just one meeting, one appointment after another all day long. Tuesday, we finally got back to the house maybe around 5, I guess. Then had to be up even earlier the next morning to be back at St. Mary's Hospital at 6:30 to do the procedure. They talked to me about the risks of the procedure, which were minimal, but they did want me to understand that even though our goal was to not have any general anesthesia, not to put me under, as they say, and thus not having to put a tube down my throat or being intubated, which is the whole purpose for me seeking out this procedure, was because if I had this surgically removed, if I have my thyroid removed, as UAB wanted to do, then that would most definitely require me to be put under general anesthesia and be intubated, which is what is so very dangerous. So they wanted me to understand that even though their goal was to do this without intubation and without general anesthesia, that if something went wrong, or if the conditions warranted it, would I want them to proceed with the ablation and go ahead and put me under. after weighing whether understanding this was still safer than having my thyroid removed and knowing that those are my only two options, I told him yes, just to go ahead. If it came down to it, go ahead and intubate me, put me under general anesthesia, and get it done. They told me up front they really didn't anticipate that happening, but they had to get my permission and make sure that they knew what I wanted them to do. The folks at Mayo are just wonderful. They've got, as you walk around the place, they've got someone standing like every 100 feet, just ready and waiting to help you and direct you in any way they can. Really, really great people up there. But the ablation went as they planned. They took me back after I was lying comfortable on the table or the stretcher. Um, they took me back and they started the sedation. I started getting, at first, lightheaded. And then I got kind of sleepy. But they told me I would not actually be asleep. I could still be awake and aware, which I was. And then after they got me kind of a little bit lightheaded and feeling spacey a little, then they injected the lidocaine into my neck right there in the front. You can still see the little red spot where all that was. Anyway, they deadened my the whole neck area there. Um, that lidocaine stick was probably the worst part of the whole thing, but it didn't last for about 10 seconds. And then they, once they knew it was numb, they inserted the probe, which is a long needle connected to a machine that can discharge radio frequency um, emissions, I suppose, kind of like electricity. In effect, it burns their target area. So he made one insertion point, goes into the tumor, um, goes in about 2 inches, which my tumor is 3 inches. So it goes in maybe 2.5 inches, and they stop and then they burn at the tip of that needle. It disperses a pup, which is like it burns it right there instantly. You can actually hear a pup. And then he pulls out a little bit, another pup. He keeps working his way back out toward the end where he stuck the needle to begin with. Once he's almost all the way out, after burning that coming back out, he changes the angle and goes back in and does the whole process again in a different area of the tumor. So they worked on and did that um, for about 45 minutes until they could get the entire inner circle or the inner core of it. They didn't want to go too close to the edge of the tumor, or a nodule. It's really a nodule. That they didn't want to go close to the edge because then they're getting close to nerves, my vocal cords, muscles, and so forth. So the idea is to get the inside, burnt away. And that took about 45 minutes, which I was awake and I was hearing what they were saying. Uh, I heard them say something one time that they thought I was asleep. And I'm just like, nope, I'm awake. Oh, okay, you're awake. And then I would ask questions. The doctor said something about it was a 3 and it should have been a 5. And I didn't know what they were talking about, but when you hear something like that, you're inquisitive. I'm like, so what does the 5 mean? And then they were like, oh, they thought I was asleep again. But I said, oh, no, it's nothing. It has nothing to do with that. What anything you should be concerned with. I'm like, okay. But anyway, I was back there just a little over an hour, and everything went great. They told me I would have some soreness afterward in the days to come. Um, it's now been 2 days and I haven't had a bit of soreness. I have experienced no pain from it whatsoever. Um, they told me it would swell uh, a lot. And then over 4 or 5 days, it would return back to what it was when before I had the ablation. And if you can see in the picture, let me see. I don't know if you can really tell much about it. I can't get too close to this camera, but anyway, it is swollen a little bit. And they said it would return back to what it was before I went in. But then over the next 6 months, 6 months to a year, it should shrink by 50% volume. Now he said that doesn't mean that if it's 3 inches long, it's going to shrink down to an inch and a half long. It means that the inside where they've done the ablation, all that will collapse in on itself and the outside will shrink inward. But, it's not exactly half because it's by volume. Anyway, so that's what we're hoping for. It will more than likely grow back. The outer area of the nodule that was not ablated will and obviously would continue to grow. So, as I had said many months ago going into this is not a permanent solution, but it is a way to avoid surgery under general anesthesia. So, in another year, 2 years, we may have to repeat this whole process. If that happens, when that happens, I will try my best to see if they can do this at the Mayo Clinic in Florida, or at the very least, go up to Minnesota during their summer. So only time will tell. After it was done Wednesday, it took me 2 hours in recovery just to get awake because I did not want to wake up. We all feel it's partly because of how much loss of sleep I'd had the 3 days prior to that. But I think we got home around, back to the Airbnb after the procedure. We got back there 4-ish, around 4, I think, in time to eat some dinner and get into bed. And I got into bed by 7 and actually went to sleep around 8. My brother got in bed at 6 and got, I think he said 6. My brother got in bed around 6 and actually didn't get up till 6 the next morning. So he had a good, solid time to sleep, which came in handy because as we set home or set south Thursday, heading back to O'Fallon, Missouri for a night there on the way home, we decided to tough it out and ride the extra 8 hours straight through and to come on home. So we got home in the early hours of Friday morning at 3:30. I was in bed by 6, got up by 9, and here I am when it's almost 4 in the afternoon. So I'm running on 3 hours sleep on top of a very strenuous week. We did have snow on Wednesday morning, and but it was only about 5 inches. I know down here in Alabama, 5 inches is enough to shut the whole city down, but up there it's nothing. Um, and it really was nothing. They had someone come out and scrape the roads and ice the sidewalks, and uh, it really wasn't a big deal. It was just really cold. I think it was 10 degrees Wednesday morning, the morning of the procedure, and we had to be at St. Mary's at 6:30, so it was quite cold. But anyways, there is so much I could tell about this trip. So many uh, horrible things and so many funny things. But nevertheless, I'm home. It's behind me, and I'm so very thankful that the Lord has just gotten me through all this. And my mom, bless her heart, my mom is just worn out. I know my brother's tired too. We all are, but she, at her age, is just absolutely worn out. We'll probably go to bed early tonight and then try to get back in our regular routine. I do want to again thank everyone who's donated and helped make this trip possible. I'm going to do, it might be tomorrow now, I'm going to do an accounting of all of our expenses and see how we panned out. Because we had a lot of GoFundMe donations, and then we also had a lot of personal checks and cash donations given to us here locally. So I just, without looking at it, I think we did really well. But anyway, that'll be the next video, and I guess I'll see you guys then. Thank you all again, and God bless.